Welcome to Goombana's YouTube channel, a magical place for noobs and gamers alike where stupidity and fun come to life. If you're watching this video, it means you've either seen Five Nights at Freddy's or aren't planning to but want to know what the hubbub is about. Congratulations! We're going to have so much fun together. It's important to note that the movie is a different canon from the games, and we intentionally don't have all the puzzle pieces yet. So if you or your favorite YouTuber have theories that don't match up with the ones in this video, that's fine. Just don't be a dick about it in the comments. Also, we'll be comparing and contrasting the movie to the games and book series, so here's your spoiler warning for all three. Now let me introduce you to the star of the show. What up? So fans of the Five Nights at Freddy's series knew going in that this movie would have a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of mystery, and probably a lot of confusion from a casual audience. And that was right. Now this video is going to contain Easter eggs for people new to the series and Easter eggs that even the most hardcore fans might not have caught. And of course it wouldn't be Five Nights at Freddy's without a good deal of theorizing, so strap in. We start out exactly where we start out in Fnaf 1, the security office, as the poor previous security guard makes a desperate attempt to escape. Taking a little tour of the office, there are a lot of things taken straight from the first game. The Celebrate poster, the fan, the striped cup, the security cameras that you can flip between to monitor the restaurant, and a vent. There's also a red light that later comes on, which was also in Fnaf 3, a Bonnie Sanchi plushie on the locker, a framed dollar with a picture and note that are seemingly purposefully kept out of focus for the entirety of the movie, but this is almost certainly one of those "this was the first dollar I earned from this endeavor" kind of thing, and a coffee machine that's the same shape as the coffee character from the 1.2 update of Fnaf World, which originated from one of creator Scott Cawthon's previous games, The Desolate Hope. As the security guard tries to get out the door, we can hear Foxy singing the same song as he did in Fnaf 1 before attacking, and the security guard attempts to unscrew the bolts to get out of the chair. These locked door, Foxy attack, and unscrewing bolt moments are all recreated later in the movie by Mike. The deadly Freddy mask has very similar red eyes on the inside to the animatronics in Fnaf Help Wanted, and on the outside doesn't have any eyes at all, with the eyelids slightly closed. Perhaps to show that this mask is truly empty. It doesn't have a kid's soul inside of it or anything. Just meant for killing. We then get our first good look around the pizzeria, and there's a lot here. The notably empty stage is set up as it is in Fnaf 1, down at the circular clouds that appeared in the game's trailer. In the arcade area, we've got pinball machines, deep sea treasure, and a skee-ball setup that I'm pretty dang sure is actually a skee-ball classic model that has had all of its logos covered up. You can see it better in Daco's video where he visits the set, and yeah, this is a fake logo. As far as I can tell, no skee-ball brand uses this logo, but the yellow accents, red wall, width, and even the placement of the logo circles are most similar to this model. But maybe that logo has a secret meaning. Probably not, but maybe. Anyway, we also have a Kix brand bubble foosball table from 1984, a repainted Wheel of Fortune type game, Cyclone, a crane game, and some more cabinet games like Centipede, 2 versions of Asteroids, and this. Target Practice, which they're totally gaslighting me with, because when I broke down the teaser for New Rockstars, I spotted this in the training video, looked through vintage arcade cabinets for hours, and finally found that it matched up with Area 51, which I thought was weird since that didn't come out until 1995. The training video was supposed to be set in the 80s. So I was excited to find out if I was right or not, and when I saw this, I was like, huh? But I did not look for hours and hours to get this wrong. And after more research, lo and behold, there is no arcade game called Target Practice. And look at the screen they used. Familiar. And the panel? That's right, it's a rebranded Area 51 machine. These are the things I'll think about on my deathbed. But I get it, they had to change it to make it fit the time period. But I'm a real menace when it comes to stuff like this, and this is Big Dog made in 2009 and Lil Hoops, the earliest video I can find from 2010. Which wouldn't make sense even in the movie's present day, which is 1995. Later in the movie, Mike's watch says it's Tuesday, April 11th, and the only year in the 90s where April 11th was a Tuesday was 1995. Do I actually care about the time period inconsistency? No, I just couldn't let my research go to waste. And I don't like being gaslit. Then we get to a wall of kids' drawings, and drawings are shown in many a Five Nights at Freddy's game. They're mostly pretty generic, but some of the notable ones are this one, which is similar to one of the drawings of Bonnie in Fnaf 1, the Balloon Boy picture, this picture of a kid named David, potentially a nod to a kid with the same name in The Mimic, the third story in Tales from the Pizzaplex 6, and right behind the picture with the yellow rabbit, there's a camping drawing. Coincidence? I think not. We're then hit with intro credits that I'm sure lit every fan of the series up, seeing as it's a style that pays homage to the 8-bit minigames first introduced in Fnaf 2 and kept as a staple throughout the series. It's set to an instrumental version of Five Nights at Freddy's by the Newton Brothers, which plays again when Golden Freddy and Abby are standing in front of the pizzeria, and again when Abby turns the animatronics against William. The sequence shows the events of the missing children's incident when the 5 kids went missing in the 80s by being lured away by the Yellow Rabbit mascot. Really hard not to say Golden Bonnie. and not only shows William as fans of the game know him as Purple Guy, but even displays Matthew Lillard's name as it shows him in purple font. So a casual viewer could probably piece together that Lillard is the big bad at 3 minutes and 30 seconds into this movie, when fans of the game had to wait 2 games to be able to put that together. That hurts somehow. Any hoodles, it looks like there also might be a kawaii version of the Purple Guy's head in the vending machine, but that could just be wishful thinking. Although it isn't canon to the games and might not make too much of a difference, it's interesting to note that this also gives us the order that the kids were taken. First it was Foxy, then Freddy, then Chica, then Golden Freddy, and finally Bonnie. Then our golden boy Mike wakes up at the classic 6 a.m. For those who are new to the series, Mike Schmidt is the name or pseudonym of the security guard that you play as in the first game. On his desk he has a bottle of Loperazolum, which I think is the correct pronunciation. I keep wanting to say loprazolam, but I don't know. I'm gonna say loperazolum. I'm sorry if that's incorrect. I'm not a doctor. Anyway, they're sleeping pills. He also has a picture of him, Garrett, and his mom and dad, indicating that Abby is either the baby of the family, wink wink, we'll talk about it later, or just the social pariah of the family. Just kidding, it's the first one. The dad is also doing bunny ears in the picture. Not a coincidence. Finally, he has a copy of the book Dream Theory on his desk. The book has a picture of a rabbit in the corner, and the background is reminiscent of the Fruity Maze game from Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Now, Dream Theory is not a real book, and the title is a reference to a theory of the same name that took the community by storm, which implied that the first 4 games are all a dream. Now, it is still fought about to this day whether or not those were Scott's original intentions, and he retconned it. Since then, he's poked fun at Dream Theory a few times, but this was definitely a, you want a dream theory? I'll give you dream theory. This introduces a new concept that wasn't in the games, where Mike is able to dream walk through his memories when he sleeps and meets the ghost kids this way. Now, in the Silver-Eyes book series, he's injected with Remnant, which I don't think we have the time nor necessity to get into right now, and can see the ghost children that way. But hey, apparently Loperazolum works too. And with the American healthcare system, who knows which is cheaper. In Abby's room, the first drawing we see is Abby and Mike on a plane that is red like Garrett's. Coincidence? You get it. There's also a picture that I really hope is a reference to the rainbow fish, since this is how a kid would probably draw it, and it came out in '92, so it's definitely possible. Abby is lying in a blanket fort, which, with its shape and colorful patterns, almost looks like a tent, doesn't it? Like a whimsical circus tent. Okay, let's talk about Abby and the Circus Baby connections. Starting at the beginning, in the games, Mike's sister's name is Elizabeth. Elizabeth gets killed by the baby animatronic from Circus Babies and possesses it. Abby is an anagram for baby. When Mike's at the ice cream store in the mall, the employee says he should bring his sister because there's a new ice cream flavor she'll go crazy for. And in the games, Elizabeth was lured in by ice cream. The sister tie, the anagram, the circus tents, the fact that she's the baby of the family, the ice cream, the convenient lion toy in frame with her. We'll see whether or not she's gonna get got, but I definitely think there have been circus Easter eggs surrounding her character. She also has a bunch of stuffed animals in her room, including a fox, a bunny, and a bear. Sorry, Chica. And she throws a dog stuffed animal at Mike when he leaves the room. This would be the first instance of Mike getting attacked by an animal. At the mall, kids are having a birthday party in the background behind Mike. 5 balloons, 1 separated balloon. Interesting. Obviously, this is also referencing the birthday parties at Freddy's. At the ice cream store, their logo is Chica's Magic Rainbow from Fnaf World, and the new ice cream flavor is Rainbow Explosion. Perhaps a nod to either when you beat Chica's Magic Rainbow or get beaten, since in both instances there's an explosion. The employee's name is Cindy, which might be a reference to Cindy McKenzie from Bunny Call, the first story of Fazbear Frights 5. Mike then has a PTSD-triggered reaction to a kid seemingly being taken, like his brother, which probably wasn't helped by the fact that one of the potential side effects of Loperazolum is aggressive outbursts. Now, this could be a coincidence, but I also noticed that when he's running after the guy, there are quite a few people wearing purple, which is the color that symbolizes Afton and therefore evil in the games. We then meet Steve Raglan, who is actually William Afton, going under a pseudonym, much like he does in the Silver-Eyes trilogy by going under the name Dave Miller. Fun fact, in 8-Bit Ryan's video where he visits the set, there's a food safety certificate addressed to Brad Miller, which you never see in the actual movie. This will almost certainly come into play in later movies though, seeing as a huge amount of thought goes into making props. There's also a box that says Open Case Reports second quarter 2019, which is notably turned around in the actual movie. But considering this movie wasn't shot in 2019 or anything that would have a real-world excuse to have 2019 written on it, and the files in there have to do with in-universe matters, I don't Oh. But back to Steve. He's wearing a yellow shirt and tie with purple polka dots, the two main colors associated with William Afton. And although it looks like he has all sorts of accolades that got him this position, this award on his wall is actually a participation award. He also has a district map on his wall, which I actually think amorphosizes where this takes place rather than cements it. The child custody papers Mike served shows we're in Minnesota, and Vanessa's police car, which says GFPD, would narrow it down to East Grand Forks or Granite Falls. But neither of these match up to this district map. And when you really zoom in, you can see that the areas on the map's key are Eastern Mountains, Northern Hills, Central Valley, Western, and Forest Hills, which are all very generic. There's also a river by both East Grand Forks and Granite Falls, which isn't on this map. This being the case, and the fact that Vanessa's badges have no real-world location indicators, I think it's being kept purposefully vague and semi-fictional. But back to Steve! So if you didn't piece together that Lillard's the big bad in the opening credits, boy, surely reading Mike's last name, seeing the resemblance, and immediately acting suspicious and offering him a job sets off the alarms. He also has a lucky rabbit's foot on his keychain. Afton lists all the jobs Mike's been promptly fired from, which brings to mind how often and quickly Mike gets fired from his security jobs under different pseudonyms in the games, with one firing slip even calling out how it's only been one day. And he mentions the pay for the job is bad but the hours are worse, perhaps a fun little nod at how you got paid $4 an hour in the first game. Back at the Schmidt household, some notable things are a sun clock that is vaguely reminiscent of the clock in Fnaf's sister location, and a VHS of Aaron Brockovich under the table, which came out in 2000, so a slight error there. But the movie takes place in 1993, so maybe that's why it was picked. When Abby's drawing, she says she's drawing her friends, but it's not the Freddy's crew. It's a monkey and a yellow dog and a Lala? Which is strange. She doesn't start drawing the ghost kids until after she meets them at the pizzeria, so I don't think that the imaginary friend she's referring to Mike sitting on is likely a ghost kid. Originally I assumed it was Golden Freddy, but she mistakes Golden Freddy for Freddy at the end of the movie, along with the rest of the non-gaming audience. Which makes me think she hasn't met him yet, but she has the exact same smile throughout the whole scene, leaving me very confused as to whether or not she's met him or is just immediately very comfortable with any ghost kid who wanders in. But anyway, Mike has his first dream here and we see the incident where his brother got kidnapped. A couple interesting things in this first dream. First, you can see a bunch of different families all around the campsite, whereas in later dreams it's completely vacant. He also gets distracted by a yellow frisbee that leads to his brother being taken, which may be symbolic of the yellow rabbit. Cut to the school, where unlike Afton, Dr. Lillian has several prestigious diplomas and awards for things other than participation. Dr. Lillian also sets up the concept of children communicating through pictures. She says, "Pictures hold tremendous power for children. Before we learn to speak, images are the most important tool we have for understanding the world around us. What's real, what matters to us most. These are things that children learn to communicate almost exclusively through pictures." Adding, "And who is at the center of 9 out of 10 of them? Like it or not, you are her world." While she's talking about Mike and Abby, this perfectly parallels the ghost children with Afton and explains why they're under his control. Because like it or not, he's their world. And if we take a look at the chalkboard, among the words we can see puppet, bear, bunny, fox, and chick. For those unfamiliar, the puppet is a character introduced in the second game that we'll talk more about later. So, we finally reached night 1 at the pizzeria. Mike is not greeted by anyone on his first day there, but rather given a note with directions to get in, an instruction tape, and a loose description by Afton. All of which should be a pretty good indication that this is not a legitimate job. Also, the code on the note is 1589, and if this were a Fnaf game, that would likely indicate that the date January 5th, 1989 is an important one. If it will be in the movies, I don't know, we'll have to see. But as Mike drives up, you might notice that the close sign has 5 letters together, 1 letter apart. Interesting. But in all seriousness, my guess would be that the 5 letters together, which spell close by the way, represent the 5 ghost kids, with the red letter being Golden Freddy, and the one off to the side I would guess probably represents the puppet, although it could be Afton lurking in the distance. On the call, Afton tells Mike to just keep his eyes on the monitors and keep people out, which are the boiled down instructions on how to play the first game. Just keep your eyes on the monitors and keep people out. Easy. He also signs off the call by saying, "I will catch you on the flip side, hopefully," which is both a reference to Phone Guy's line in Fnaf 1 and a double entendre that he hopes to catch him. As Mike enters the building, there's a poster that says, "It's time to party like there's no tomorrow," a secretly ominous message that's echoed in the other posters around the building, like the one by the ball pit that says, "Surprises at every corner." When Mike flips the breaker for the first time, the sound of the light bulbs kind of resembles Toreador's song from Carmen, which was a song that played in the game when the power shut off and is very much tied to the series. On the training tape, beneath Mike's name, you can just barely see the name Fritz, which is a reference to the name on the pink slip in Fnaf 3, and thought to potentially be another one of Mike's pseudonyms. This is either simply a nod to that, or possibly indicates that the previous security guard's name was Fritz. Then we get to my girl Kim, who explains in the 80s training video that cleverly concealed rechargeable lithium cells give the animatronics limited range to roam free, which is why they can't leave the pizzeria. You might be wondering how Golden Freddy is able to go to Abby's house then, and let's put a bookmark in that and get back to it later. Also in the tape is an endoskeleton from the first game with a man who is definitely not Afton working on it. It's possible this is going to be Henry from the Games and Book series, but put this bookmark with the other one. I promise we'll get back to it. That same endoskeleton also appears backstage when Max's group is breaking in and in the pile of animatronics in the parts and service room. When Kim hits the Showtime button, that's from Fnaf Help Wanted, and it goes to static, for a brief moment you can see a close-up of Freddy's face, quite possibly paying homage to a rare jump scare in Fnaf 1 where Freddy's face appears close up. Speaking of jump scares, Mike then opens a locker to Balloon Boy, or at least a toy of Balloon Boy, who was a character introduced in the second game. Appropriately in that game, Balloon Boy didn't try to kill your character, but was rather a nuisance during gameplay, which seems to be his role in this as well. When Mike moves to the main room, we get a look at Foxy's Cove, with the same round purple curtain from the first game, and the prize counter, much like the prize counter from Fnaf 2. At this prize counter there are more Sanchi plushies, some classic Fnaf Halloween masks, shirts, the security badges, a Ninja Knights playset from Hudson, and Hex plushies, which is the brand owned by Fnaf YouTuber Dawko, and can be seen better in his set video, where he shows they're also in the crane game machine. Mike has another dream where this time he speaks to the ghost kids and chases after the one inhabiting Golden Freddy, and when he wakes up at 6 a.m. and his shift is over. A rather uneventful night, but hey, the first night's always easy. When Mike gets home, Abby is sleeping peacefully with a teddy bear. Cut to Sparky's Coffee Shop, the name being a reference to an old urban legend that there was a sixth animatronic in Fnaf 1 named Sparky the Dog. The server was a cameo by MatPat of the Game Theorists, whose theories on the Fnaf games as they were coming out helped launch the series into the spotlight. His name tag reads Ness, a nod to one of his most infamous memed-upon theories that Sans from Undertale was actually Ness from Earthbound. And he talks about how lunch is the most important meal of the day, which sounds like it would come straight out of the sister channel The Food Theorists. He ends his cameo with his signature line, "But that's just a theory," and Aunt Jane says, "Are you being paid by the word?" Which I think is a cheeky reference to how Matt's reaction videos are often incredibly lengthy compared to what he's reacting to. Night 2 at Freddy's holds more activity right off the bat. The Foxy's Cove curtains are slightly parted and we catch his shadow in the hallway. It's also in this moment that we see some of the other posters that line the hallway, which we'll turn to YouTuber Razbowski's on-set video to see better. There's a Foxy Saves the Kingdom poster, a more vintage version of the Where Kids Can Play Forever poster, and I Have Sand in My Hair Yellow Rabbit poster. Note the human eyes in the mask sockets, unlike the animatronics. A Leaning Tower of Pizza Freddy poster, and a torn poster that he doesn't linger on, but call me crazy, that looks like a puppet arm, which is why it might be torn. There's also a yellow hand holding a camera, so it could be a Chica poster, but I felt the stripes were important to call out, especially given we've gotten other breadcrumbs of the puppet and that this is the only poster that's torn. Mike has another Ghost Kid's dream, and in this one, the Foxy Ghost Kid's eyes turn black and he cries black tears. Possibly a reference to the crying child in the games or even the puppet, though this kid doesn't yet have any direct tie to either of those. The lights and sound system goes off and we see "It's me" written on the mirror. The phrase "It's me" first showed up in Fnaf 1 when Golden Freddy would appear, and since his message only appears when it's just Mike in the building, it's a message clearly intended for him. Bookmark. We're then introduced to Vanessa, who first appeared in the 9th main game installment, FNAF Security Breach, as a security guard, causing fans to be surprised to see her in the trailer when the movie was supposed to mainly represent the first game. Vanessa's story in the games is still a work in progress at this point, but she basically is split into Vanessa and Vanny. And while she's not Afton's daughter in the games, she is controlled by him, seemingly by fear as Vanessa and by something more as Vanny. Interestingly, Vanessa had a bunch of cut lines in Security Breach that made it seem at first like she wanted to help the main character, Gregory.
Gregory, I can keep you safe. Please come out. I'm here to help.
Instead, the final cut had Vanessa tipping off that she was a bad guy more right off the bat, with lines like,
"Ugh, I hate kids. Why, you little brat. Come on out, you little monster."
It seems like in the movie they went for more of her original intent, for her to seem helpful and innocent at the start and then have the reveal come later. However, I definitely see parallels that make me think that another turn might be coming. Like Vanessa in the game, she's terrified of Afton, but there's one line that makes me think we'll be getting Vanny later down the line. When Mike asks her to come with him to fight Afton, she's exasperated and says, "If he's there, I won't be any use to you, believe me." The way that she says this makes me think that he's able to control her using more than just fear. But I'm jumping around too much, so let's get back to where we were. Vanessa powers up the band and Talking in Your Sleep by the Romantics plays. It started playing a couple times before this, but this is when it's the most prominent and the most fitting. The lyrics being, when you close your eyes and go to sleep and it's down to the sound of a heartbeat, I can hear the things you're dreaming about. When you open up your heart and the truth comes out. Soon after, Jeff tells Max it's showtime and the gang assembles. As the system powers on, we can see on the security cameras a one-for-one shot of Bonnie, Freddy, and Chica from the first game. But the intruders are not for long. Carl, wearing a shirt paying homage to Midnight Motorist, a minigame in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, gets killed by Mr. Cupcake, which is fitting since Carl's named after the fan-made name for Mr. Cupcake, which is Carl the Cupcake. Each of the animatronics kills in the room they're associated with in Fnaf 1. The Cupcake doesn't kill in the first game, but I think this choice was made for logistical movement purposes. Like, it's easier to have a cupcake move through the vents than giant suits. But for all intents and purposes, the Cupcake's kills count as Chica's. And in the game, Chica is the only one that can be heard in the kitchen where the lights are out. In the movie, you can even see her making her way there in the background behind the fan. In the game, Bonnie goes to the broom closet, so in the movie, that's where Hank meets his fate. The single light bulb is also a nice one-for-one. Foxy runs down the hallway just as he does in the game, and though Freddy is more amorphous, the ghost child lures Max in the same way the audio lures work in Fnaf 3 and onward. And the fact that he plays hot and cold with her may be referencing how Freddy spawns more frequently when the temperature increases in the game. And her death is very much reminiscent of when the crying child is bitten in Fnaf 3. During all of the madness, we can also see the employees of the month board, which has cameos from Fnaf YouTubers Razbowski, John Wolf, Fusion Z Gamer, DJ Sturf, Baz, Daco, and 8-Bit Ryan. In addition, in the parts and surface room, we get a glimpse of a few cool creations straight out of Jim Henson's Creature Shop. They were the ones who created the animatronics, and in addition, let the filmmakers use props straight out of their warehouse, which is why it looks so much like an actual animatronic workshop. These exact giant eyes can be seen in the Creature Shop, as well as several heads resembling these. I thought this even might be a prototype of Mangle when I first saw it, but it turns out a lot of the animatronic heads already have the gums painted on, which is the pink that you see here. But over on the other side, you can get a look at more human-esque animatronics. And this one reminds me of the Phone Guy line, where he says that if you got spring-locked, the only parts of you that would see the light of day again would be your eyeballs and teeth when they pop out of the front of the mask. Also in this room is the pile of animatronics that include Shadow Freddy, first seen in Fnaf 2, and Fetch the dog from Fazbear Frights 2. Some people have been claiming this is Sparky, and maybe they're making it the canon Sparky, but it has a collar with a dog tag like Fetch instead of overalls like Sparky, and the shape of the face and how the jaw juts out is much more reminiscent of Fetch in my opinion. But if they change it, they change it. We might not ever see it again anyway. Heading back to Mike's house, Abby is watching A Day at the Zoo, which is a Warner Brothers Merry Melodies cartoon from 1939 that has a very familiar looking ending. It's also probably not a coincidence that a Merry Melodies cartoon was used when Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator introduced the mediocre melodies. Underneath the TV, you can spot Madeline at cooking school and Beatrix Potter VHS tapes. There's also a drawing of a man fishing at a dock that brings to mind Old Man Consequences from Fnaf World. Vanessa comes by the house to chat with Mike, and in this scene there's so much meaning packed into every line. This is where Vanessa learns that his brother Garrett went missing when Mike was about 12, and I think it's here where she remembers Nebraska and puts the pieces together. At the end of their conversation, she even brings the Nebraska poster back up by joking about the scent of pine trees helping him remember. Mike talks about enjoying time watching TV with his family, which he also enjoys doing in Sister Location, the FNAF Survival Logbook, and arguably FNAF World. And Vanessa says forlornly that sounds really nice since she never got to experience that herself with Afton being her dad. Finally, she comments that at least Mike has Abby, which I think might hold more meaning than people think, but I'll get back to that. First, we have night 3 to talk about. Mike goes to the broom closet to get cleaning supplies and sees a trace amount of blood, with the full handprint noticeably missing. With Vanessa knowing about the break-in that happened, this is a clue that she was the one who cleaned up before he got there so he wouldn't know about the murders. Also, there's a fan in this closet, which I only noted because there's an odd amount of fans in this movie. There's the iconic one in the office, the one in the kitchen, one at Mike's house, and one in here? Was it that hot in the 90s? I wouldn't know. I'm so young. Mike has another dream where the ghost kid draws the yellow rabbit, another hint at the kids communicating through pictures. When Mike asks Abby about the machines from the other night, she responds, "My friends?" A word she keeps using, which might be a reference to how the crying child referred to those 4 characters as his friends in Fnaf 3. She says she knows of Garrett's kidnapping because the boy with the blonde hair told her about it. But how would he know about it? That's right, another bookmark! Night 4 at Freddy's takes a tone shift as we're treated to a classic 90s goofy montage of the whole gang building a fort.
He needs to be higher.
Yeah, so do I. Only a joke. Don't do drugs, kids. Mike finds a spring-lock animatronic in storage that is of Ella from Fazbear Frights 3, 1:35 a.m. And Mike and Vanessa get into a heated argument, with Vanessa later saying that if he brings Abby back, she's going to shoot him. For some reason, murderous animatronics are fine with me, but the second she says she's gonna shoot him, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa! I think we're just building a fort, Vanessa! I'm getting whiplash! Mike decides he's gonna go alone the next night. Can't blame him! And when Abby finds out she's being babysat by Aunt Jean and gets the wrong idea, she scribbles his face out of all of her drawings. Which is bad news for Mikey boy, seeing as the ghost kids communicate through drawings. Before he goes to the pizzeria though, he stops by the pharmacy where the song Celebrate plays over the speakers, hilariously juxtaposing the pharmacist calling him an asshole and also throwing back to the Celebrate poster. Mike's dream this time involves getting to interact with his family, but it's important to note that he's not interacting with their ghosts like he is with the animatronic ghost children, but them as characters in his dream which are a reflection of his subconscious. Abby being happier with the animatronics and him never being the right person to take care of her are not things that his brother and mom's ghosts are saying to him. It's the things he says to himself. Also, the ghost kids' faces blur every now and then. Maybe this is them losing connection to his dream or just a portrayal of the weird surrealness that comes with dreams, but either way, I don't like it. Meanwhile, Aunt Jean knocks on Abby's door asking her to come out, and when Abby refuses, says, "Suit yourself," like an yeah. Then she gets killed by Golden Freddy. Maybe knocked out, but either way, I like to imagine she's still lying there in this scene later. YouTuber CoreyX Kenshin makes a cameo as a taxi driver and was oddly willing to give a little girl a ride by herself before he knew Golden Freddy was in the car.
Where to, little lady?
Seems weird. Cut to Vanessa having taken Mike to a police supply outpost to fix him up since she can't take him to the hospital without them asking questions. And one neat thing in this room are the stickers that mimic the signs in Fnaf 2. She tells them there are bodies still inside the suits, which makes this moment a little more icky, and then Afton influences them somehow and took everything from them but they don't remember, which is caused by the drawing making them think they're friends with the yellow rabbit. Vanessa also demonstrates how they use electrical prods for animal control, a moment very similar to Fnaf's sister location where you're told to use controlled shocks to motivate the animatronics. She encourages Mike not to use the front door, likely because she knows either Afton or the animatronics will be watching it. This might also be an intentional nod to how in FNAF 3, Springtrap will start at the far end of the building and work his way toward the security office. Back at the pizzeria, Abby follows Chica to the parts and service room before almost getting stuffed into the Ella doll. And hopefully at this point you see the symbolism of Abby getting stuffed into the stomach of a baby doll. Let's talk about the animatronics' eyes for a second. At first I thought maybe when their eyes were yellow they were under Afton's control, and when they were red they were the kids themselves being angry. After all, the biggest time all the animatronics' eyes turn red is when they're looking at Afton once they've been unbrainwashed. But it's not really consistent since Freddy has yellow eyes when approaching Mike until Abby calls him off, but Chica doesn't have yellow eyes when leading Abby to parts and service and does have yellow eyes when trying to stuff her into the doll, but Abby isn't able to call her off here. So it might just be an indicator of the level of aggro they are, but what also might be the situation is that yellow is when they're taking programmed orders, either to protect the pizzeria or protect children. And if it's to protect a child, that child can make them disengage. But a child can't override a direct command from Afton. Maybe. And in that case, the red eyes would be when the children themselves are angry, which is why we see the Foxy ghost child upset at Abby before they step into the Foxy animatronic and have red eyes. Let's talk about another mystery. While Mike's crawling through the vents, he passes a rat. Well, this is a small moment, but y'all have to understand that to get that rat shot, they had to hire animal handlers to be on set. Like, it's a bigger deal to get the shot than you'd think. So why would they go through all the trouble if it didn't mean something? Now, it could be to symbolize that Mike is like a rat in a maze, which is when a person feels like they are in an impossible dilemma or the subject of an experiment, being observed or manipulated by an unseen meddler. It could also be meant to represent the fact that Mike's heading straight into danger. After all, rats are very smart creatures, and if they're going in the opposite direction as you, they might know something you don't. But finally, one of the most well-known stories with rats is the Pied Piper of Hamelin, where a piper is hired to use his magic pipe to enchant and lead a town's rat population to the sea to drown them. When he does so, and the town doesn't keep their word to pay him, he uses the magic instrument to enchant the children and get them to follow him into a cave where they're never heard from again, which fits nicely with the ghost children losing their free will and being compelled to follow Afton's orders, even if it puts themselves or others in harm's way. But anyway, while Abby hides in the ball pit, much like the cover of Fazbear Frights 1, we finally get to see the yellow rabbit in the flesh. And like his icon in the games, one half of the body is severely damaged. Also, if fans are wondering why I'm not calling him Springtrap, it's a technicality thing. Springtrap is technically the name of the possessed suit once William gets spring-locked in the game. And prior to that, it's Golden Bonnie, but apparently Yellow Rabbit in the movies. So there you go. I am interested interested to see if they're gonna call him Springtrap in future movies, and I feel like they gotta, right? Anyway, Afton gets out a knife and wipes it with his hand as an homage to Scream, which Matthew Lillard was also in. A knife was also his weapon of choice in Silver Eyes. When he tells Vanessa she had one job to keep Mike in the dark and kill him if he got too close, she replies, "That's 2 jobs," which is a callback to Mike telling Afton that keeping people out and keeping the place tidy were 2 things. Abby replaces the picture and the power shuts off before turning back on, effectively rebooting the animatronic systems. But the picture Abby puts up is interesting. There's Foxy, Bonnie, Freddy, Chica, and Garrett? I mean, one of the defining characteristics of the Golden Freddy child is that he's blonde, so it's not like this could be Golden Freddy. Maybe this is a hat instead of hair, but the other hat is so well defined. And red wasn't ever associated with the ghost child of Golden Freddy. But dark hair and a red shirt matches up with Garrett. Bookmark! Finally, 3 iconic moments at the end of this Afton fight scene. He gets spring-locked in front of the children he killed, like in Fnaf 3. He yells, "I always come back," which is a well-known catchphrase of his in the games. And he gets dragged off by the animatronics as seen in Silver Eyes. Fast forward and Dr. Lillian tells Mike that Abby's made tremendous progress and whatever it is he's doing, keep doing it. To which he says, "Yeah, I will." Whether this is just a reference to how he continues to be a security guard in the games or whether they will actually have him get another security job in a future movie, I don't know. In the car with his sister, he asks her what she wants for dinner and makes her choose between pizza and spaghetti, saying you can't have both, which is a beautiful analogy for the lesson Mike has learned in this attempt to have both Garrett and Abby. He stops by the hospital to visit Vanessa and says, "We'll be here when you wake up," which reassures that Vanessa will be returning in future movies. The movie ends with Afton twitching in the kitchen exactly like the Fnaf 3 teasers, and the ghost kid of Golden Freddy looks on. Afton reaches out and Golden Freddy closes the door. But wait, the Easter eggs don't stop there. Five Nights at Freddy's, an extremely popular fan-made song performed by the Living Tombstone, plays in the credits, in addition to the Puppet's music box song. At the very end of the credits, the same voice as the Puppet minigame in Fnaf 3 spells out "Come Find Me." All signs point to a Puppet-centric sequel, which is fitting since we were introduced to the Puppet in the second game. And now it's time for Theory Corner. That's right, taking all the bookmarks back out and theorizing, baby. Okay, let's start with mystery number 1. What is Garrett going to be possessing? I have 3 ideas and I'll start with the weakest. He might be possessing Freddy's itself. In the games, nothing outright indicates that the pizzeria itself is haunted, but in the movie, the monitor turns on by itself, doors open and close on their own, the power goes out when Abby puts up the new picture, and when Mike powers it back up, lights symbolically shine directly onto Afton, exposing him. Maybe that's why "It's Me" shows up on the mirror for Mike, or why when Abby walks into the pizzeria, the light turns on by itself to spotlight the picture. Maybe it's Garrett trying to nudge her in the right direction. It would also track why being at Freddy's makes Mike feel closer to Garrett, and why he can't see him like the other ghost kids. However, I did say it's the weakest one to me, because so many people have died at Freddy's that it would likely be haunted anyway. My 2 other theories are the ones I'm banking on. The first is that, much like in the games, Golden Freddy is actually possessed by 2 spirits. In the game, it's Cassidy and the Crying Child, and in the movie, it would be the blonde boy and Garrett. It would track as to why Golden Freddy follows different rules than the other animatronics, and would make sense as to why he goes to the Schmidt household to get Abby. After all, how would the blonde boy know about the details surrounding Garrett's kidnapping? And as I said before, in the games, "It's Me" is linked to Golden Freddy, and who else would try to tell Mike "It's me" other than Garrett? But I know what you're thinking. Why would Mike and Abby only be able to see the blonde boy if Garrett's there too? Well, some theories that the Crying Child in the games is lost in the darkness once he dies. In the Fnaf survival logbook, there are phrases that many think are the Crying Child trying to communicate. Some of these phrases include "I can't see," "I can hear sounds," "I'm scared." I'll link the video that explains this better. But this might be why Golden Freddy only has one eye lit up. The other eye, the other soul, is lost in the darkness, only able to communicate with the other soul that possesses the suit. Maybe. Might also explain why in that last picture it's Garrett instead of the blonde boy. The last theory is that Garrett is going to be the puppet in this movie canon. Now in the games, the puppet is possessed by a girl named Charlie, who is the daughter of Henry, the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment, along with William Afton. Yes, William kills Henry's daughter. It's dark. However, in the games, Mike, Elizabeth, and the Crying Child are all William's children, and Vanessa is not. So maybe this series is gonna flip the script, with Vanessa being Afton's daughter and Mike, Abby, and Garrett being Henry's children, making Garrett take Charlie's place in possessing the puppet. But wait, you say, we see their father. You're right, and he looks an awful lot like this guy, huh? The beard throws you off, but it looks a lot like the same actor, Garrett Hines. And this theory gives Afton a reason to have kidnapped Garrett. He wouldn't have been just kidnapping some random kid while randomly in the Nebraska woods. He would have been targeting Henry's son. And since Abby wasn't born yet, it would still make sense that he didn't know that Mike had a sister. And what's more, when talking about first killing his brother and now Mike, Afton says, symmetry. Maybe there's more to that phrase than just referencing killing both of the brothers. Maybe the symmetry is leaving both families with only a daughter. Yes, I think that Afton had another kid too, I'll get back to that. Or maybe the symmetry is in reference to something else. We'd have to wait and see what their backstory was. And honestly, this might tie into the first theory a bit, because maybe in this, the puppet can invisibly pull the strings, if you will, of the pizzeria. Maybe it's the puppet who writes "It's me" and shines the light for Abby, just in a hands-off way.
Hey, Editing Anna here. I forgot to mention that while it may be a stretch, some theorize that Old Man Consequences that I mentioned earlier is Henry. Maybe Abby drew this picture of her dad doing his favorite pastime, fishing. After all, if he likes camping, he might like other outdoorsy things too.
One hole in this theory is that Mike has never heard of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which would be weird if his dad co-founded it or even worked on the animatronics. You'd also think he would notice his dad in the training video. So unless this was a whole secret life that the dad led, I'm not sure how Mike would have no knowledge of the chain whatsoever. Okay, now it's time for my most controversial theory. I previously predicted when the trailer came out that the blonde ghost kid would be Vanessa's brother, and I'll tell you what, I don't think it's been disproven. One of the things I mentioned was that Grant Feely, who played that ghost kid, had to bleach his hair for the role. That's kind of a big deal, and they wouldn't do it for nothing. I think it was to have sibling resemblance to Vanessa. But stepping inside of the movie, this kid is clearly different and stands out from the rest of them, both literally and figuratively. He's the only one who can leave the pizzeria. He's the one who tells Abby about her brother's kidnapping. Why? How does he know? Sure, maybe it's my dual possession theory, but maybe it's because he was there on a family trip with his dad and sister. Why isn't Golden Freddy in the pizzeria with the rest of the animatronics? Why does he disappear instead of following Abby inside? What is keeping him out? My guess is he's staying away from Vanessa and William. If "It's me" is associated with Golden Freddy and he writes it on the mirror for Mike, but it disappears when Vanessa's there, he doesn't want her to know he's around. But why wouldn't he want to connect to his sister? Well, she might have had a hand in his death, or at least feels like she did. I know it sounds wild, but listen, there are other lines that seem to allude to Vanessa possibly having a brother. When her and Mike are talking about him losing Garrett, she sadly says, "At least you still have Abby." Sure, it's a positive spin in general, but this could potentially be her also lamenting how she doesn't have her sibling anymore. And at least he does. And when Afton is fighting with Vanessa at the end, he tells her to help him clean up the mess that she created. Yes, he could absolutely just be talking about the fact that she didn't stop Mike, but this could also be referring to her creating this entire situation in the first place, like a guilt trip. And in the hospital, Mike says, "We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you." Another seemingly completely innocent line that could have a double meaning. Maybe they would have never lost Garrett and gotten involved with Freddy's if it weren't for something Vanessa did, or didn't do. Vanessa is clearly guilty and clearly very afraid of her father, which would make sense if you were covering up your father's murders and knew how crazy he was. But it would also make sense if you were feeling guilty over your part in it and were terrified of your father because you already knew he was capable of killing his own kid. Notice that Vanessa only starts to lose it when Mike's sister starts to get involved, and maybe that's because she has a tender spot regarding siblings. She won't let Afton hurt her too. The bottom line is that there has to be a reason that the blonde boy is different from the rest of the ghost kids. Whether that's because he's dual possessing the suit with Garrett or because he's Vanessa's brother, I can't tell yet, but those are my two biggest guesses.
Editing Anna again. Note that Afton berates all of the other animatronics, but reaches out specifically to the blonde boy for help, hoping he'll take pity on him. It is not random that the last shot is William and this boy, with William begging his son to help, and after everything he did, his son closing the door on his father. Heavy stuff.
What do y'all think? I want to hear your wildest theories in the comments. But like I said, keep it civil and polite, please. You can have your own theory without pooping on someone else's theory. But do let me know your thoughts. While you're down there, subscribe and check out my socials, and I hope you have some sweet dreams tonight. Another book. I almost broke my freaking lamp for this video. You better hit like and subscribe.
Gambana is the wonder why she didn't come to play. Gaming vids that'll make you laugh and think and put them on replay. Intelligent, kind of funny, her community's #1. Stick around and kick your feet up. Gambana has just begun.